What is your own ghost story? Not my personal experience, but my little brother. When he was about 5 or 6, he suddenly started talking to himself when he was playing in his room. Eventually we asked him who it was he was talking to, thinking it was an imaginary friend. My stepdad didn't believe in ghosts and all that until he told us who he was talking to. Amanda. Amanda was my stepdad's cousin that died from cancer when she was only 12. The last place she was at other than the hospital was our old property. Another incident with Amanda happened while me and my brother were at school and my mom was at work. My stepdad was watching TV in the living room and all the animals were in the room with him. He had just finished cleaning up my brother's toys and putting them in the box in the corner of his room. There was a loud clattering sound from my brother's room and my stepdad went to check it. The box of toys was upside down in the middle of the room. All of the toys still in the box. The animals couldn't have possibly done it because they were all with him, and let's be real, they aren't capable of doing such a thing. He later on told us that's something only Amanda would do. I refuse to mention or talk about these experiences around him because it hits him hard. The way he described her, she was a sweet and childish girl that just wanted to have fun. I never had any encounters with her, but she was my brother's best friend. He eventually stopped seeing her and he told us she didn't want to make Andy sad anymore, so she went away. I cry thinking about this. R.I.P. Amanda. In my old room, when I'm completely still and it's absolutely quiet, I would hear weeping, like someone is crying. It was barely audible and the source of the noise was the corner where my bed was. I thought it was my mom or someone else in the house, but I went outside and saw her asleep in the couch watching TV with the volume low. It didn't make sense, but a year later I moved my bed to the other side of the room. I woke up one early morning and I saw the side profile of a woman floating an inch off the ground where the bed used to be. She hovered from left to right and all I remember was seeing her in a white veil, like a wedding dress almost, and she had brown skin, like she was African American. I saw her hands at her side, but I couldn't make out any features on her face, like she didn't have one, or it was too blurry to see. She was only visible for about a little over a second as she floated from left to right. She was slightly translucent, like if you set the opacity in Photoshop to 80%, and had a very mild glow to her, just so that she was slightly brighter than her surroundings. I always thought I would freak out or have the biggest fright of my life if I ever saw an actual entity, but when I saw whoever that was, I didn't feel any fear at all. It seemed natural, like she was just passing by and wanted nothing to do with me. I sensed no bad intentions. I lived in that house for over 17 years and only saw an entity like that once ever. I considered myself to be an atheist when I was younger, but that encounter has made me acknowledge that there's something out there that we may or may not have all the answers to. I had a really strange experience at my grandma's house one time. I used to take care of her full time. I had brought her back home from dialysis treatment and she was having a particularly bad day, so I figured I would make her a cake. As she napped, I quietly made this fully piped and decorated masterpiece of a cake. I thought a cake this nice should go in the container with the snap on top, so it would be perfect when she woke up. So I set the container directly in the middle of the kitchen table clamped on the top and waited for her to wake up so I could put her in the wheelchair and move her to the living room. Finally she's awake. I walk in her room and tell her I've got a surprise for her in the kitchen. She excitedly sits up and is ready to go. As I begin to pick her up to put her in the wheelchair, I hear a loud bang. I run into the kitchen leaving her behind and see the top of the snap-on container rolling around on the floor. I run around the house and do a sweep to make sure the doors are still locked and no one is in the house. It's apparent that it's all clear. I come back and look at the cake. It's completely untouched and I'm stunned. She hollers for me and I bring her into the kitchen and tell her the entire situation. She then proceeded to tell me that she saw a ghost all of the time and personally recognized him as her grandfather, which explained the hard-soled footsteps I would hear at night and large handprints on my mirror when I showered. I still to this day have no idea how a ghost could unsnap a cake container and throw the lid on the floor without touching the cake. I was taking a shower with the lights off because I had a headache. and they randomly turned back on. The switch had flipped, but nobody else was in there. My parents were watching football, USA, and didn't open the door or anything. I've had a similar experience. My explanation so as not to freak myself out is that the switch was not in the off position, but instead in the middle, carefully balanced between on/off. A slight vibration, perhaps from me moving, or the house shifting, was just enough energy to push it into the on position. But deep down, I know that's not likely, it's not very exciting. But I used to live in a house where most of the doors couldn't be locked because the keys were lost when we got there. That includes my room's door. One day after I took a bath I went to my room to dress up, and when I went out the door was locked. At the moment I just thought my brothers were making some joke and ended up leaving through the window. But it turned out no one did anything, and we had to break the lock so that the door could be opened again. No one could explain it, so we just pretended it never happened and didn't talk about again. I've been waiting to tell this one. It's 2016. Summer vacation in South Africa and I'm 15. I'm hanging out with two friends from my hometown on the daily. One a girl, one a boy. One day we decide to sleep over at the girl's house and have a movie night. This girl's mother used to be married to one of the most famous Afrikaans singers in SA, Worsie Visser, who tragically died in a plane crash 1998. So we watch some comedies and it gets late, and we start heading to bed. We are sitting in the roomie, and my male friend are sleeping in, and talking until around 1, when he realizes that his phone is still in the living room. He begs me to go get it, and I just decide I'll do it whatever, right? So I step out of the hallway into the living room and it's dark. There is this little stool thing right as you step into your right and his phone is on it, so I bent down to pick it up. As I look back up I think I see a little blonde boy with a red shirt and jean shorts on. I stare at it trying to make out what I'm really seeing, because there isn't supposed to be a boy here, right? As I'm still trying to process what's in front of me, I hear a hello, and as soon as the sound enters my ears I get the biggest shiver of my life, and just turn around and bolt into the room and explain what I saw. OFC they don't believe me and laugh it off. Next morning comes around and I tell this lady's husband, girl's dad, and he just said something along the lines of it's his time of year again. A few years later, and I bring it up to my mother again. She tells me this lady has complained to her about Worsie bugging her when she's alone in her house. She's told stories where she's walking around the house and sees him laying on the couch and she just doesn't even mind him. I wish I knew this before I went to sleep over, but I know what you're thinking. No, I never slept over there again. One time in college my two other roommates were out of town and I was getting ready to go to bed. It was very late/early into the morning. I closed my room's door and turned the lights off. As I'm getting in bed there are 3 distinctive knocks on my bedroom door. I immediately get goosebumps, something I never get. I jumped up and turned my bedroom light on and opened my door quickly. Nothing was there, just the dark empty house. Creeps me TF out until this day. We have a superstition about this. After the 3rd knock, wait for the person behind the door to announce Tau Pio. The phrase means I'm a human. We always use this phrase to announce our arrival on somebody else's house or room. If nothing follows after the 3rd knock then do not open the door. It is believed that whatever knocks wanted to be let in, and opening the door is a welcome. When I was little, I was going to bed, and the light in my room was hot. I could see the warm glow of the hallway light streaming in through the door and my silhouette on the ground. However, its room had an odd white flickering light to it. My body froze at the door, but I was curious and poked my head around the corner. There was a human figure about 5.5 feet tall, walking about a foot off the ground, and wreathed in the white and black of television static. My mind screamed run, but my body was still locked in place. It had taken 2 steps towards me before I was finally able to utter the word and my legs kicked in. Curled up in my dad's lap for the rest of the night. So a few weird events have happened in my house ever since a family member of mine, my cousin, passed away in 2013. My family genuinely thinks it's him messing with us, like he would when he was alive. Small things happen like doors closing or opening alone, stuff going missing and reappearing. loud man footsteps when no one else is home, and other truly inexplicable events. Anyway, we have a pool table in the living room, and I swear, I absolutely promise, I heard the billiard balls move on their own, as if someone was playing. It was quick, only a second, and it was loud. We were all in the same room, the kitchen, eating dinner when we heard the noise from the pool table. I go to look. There's obviously no one in that room, and we all just kind of look at each other like, what the duck just happened? I've never gotten such intense goosebumps. Someone, possibly my late cousin, was playing pool. Another time, I'd say a year or more ago, I was in my room with my best friend and we're talking shit, doing arm acup, whatever. The door to my bathroom is slightly open. Sometime later I see it a little less than slightly open, but still noticeably open. None of us had been to the bathroom in that time we were talking, so her and I start paying attention to it. Let me mention and keep in mind this door has to be forced closed, physically shoved. It cannot slam close, and in all my years of living in this house, since I was in pre-K, I'm 20 now, the AC has never pushed the door closed. The AC wasn't even on actually. Well, we're watching the door and all of a sudden the door slammed shut. That shit closed all by itself in front of our faces. She screams and we go to run out of the room. My best friend has been terrified of that bathroom ever since. This is definitely the type of thing my cousin would have done while he was still alive. He loved messing with us. I miss him. He was definitely more of a big brother to me than a cousin. But it's comforting to think he's still here in some way watching over the family. Please subscribe and leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more of Reddit Universe.